My son-in-law smiled and said, "You'll love the new nursing home. They even have crochet classes." I smiled back, steady hands on the coffee cup, though I already knew. The papers, the sales, the forged signature. I had watched my life being auctioned in whispers long before this lunch. I didn't argue. I didn't plead. I simply nodded, and in that silence, I chose something sharper than anger. Back then, it's strange, isn't it, how betrayal wears a familiar face. I raised my daughter alone after her mother passed. She was my sun. I worked double shifts, missed sleep, built a house brick by brick so she'd never feel the hunger I did. I gave her everything, every coin, every ounce of strength. When she brought him home, her wide-eyed fiancé, I shook his hand and thought, finally, a man who will protect her when I'm gone. He called me Dad too easily, but I let myself believe it. I wanted to. We laughed at birthdays. We traveled. He fixed my car once, even called me his second father. Trust, it turns out, is the rope you hand them so they can hang you later. The first crack. The first time I noticed was small. My old watch, my wife's last gift, wasn't on the dresser. My daughter said maybe I misplaced it. I didn't. Then the bank called. Strange withdrawals, they said. She brushed it off. He smiled and assured me it was a clerical error. But the smiles became too perfect. The reassurances too quick. And one evening, as I walked past the den, I heard it. If we sell the house before he goes into care, we'll clear everything. He'll never fight it. Her voice. His laugh. That night, grief didn't drown me. It crystallized. I didn't rage. I sharpened. The shift. I began pretending. That was my advantage. They thought age made me weak. They forgot age also makes you invisible. People stop watching you. They assume you're fading. That blindness became my weapon. I started moving pieces quietly. My lawyer, an old army friend, updated my will, my accounts, everything. I liquidated assets they didn't know existed, shifted funds offshore, and closed every loophole they thought they'd left open. I let them think they'd won. I left the old furniture in the open, the boxes labeled neatly, the documents forged by their greedy hands. And while they counted imaginary chickens, I booked a one-way flight. The execution. The morning after that lunch, while they laughed over coffee and sorted cash from selling my tools, my wife's jewelry, my books, I was already gone. Seatbelt buckled, plane rising above the clouds. They didn't know I'd sold the house first, legally, quietly, to a holding company in my name. The deed they thought they forged, worthless. The money they thought they'd pocketed, already wired to me. By the time they tried to withdraw again, the accounts were frozen. By the time they tried to reach me, my number was gone. And the house they thought they'd claimed? The locks had already changed. The confrontation. I didn't vanish completely. That would have been too kind. 3 weeks later, I mailed them a single envelope. No letter, just copies, the deed transfer, the frozen account notice, and a photo of me on a beach, sunglasses, drink in hand. I imagine the silence that fell in their kitchen. Him holding the papers, her realizing I wasn't the fool they'd painted me to be. They thought they'd buried me alive, but I left them with nothing but ashes and the knowledge that they underestimated me. The release. Do I miss my daughter, the child I raised? Every day. But the woman who plotted to discard me like spoiled milk, that woman was never my daughter. She was a stranger I fed for too long. Justice doesn't always come from courts or police. Sometimes justice is simply surviving on your own terms, denying the vultures their feast. I didn't scream at them. I didn't beg for mercy. I simply slipped the knife out of my back, turned it in my hands, and placed it where it belonged. Now, when I wake to the sound of the ocean instead of their voices, I breathe easier. I crochet, yes, but on my balcony, in the sun, with no walls but the horizon. The revenge wasn't in taking anything from them. It was in reminding them they never truly had me. They'll spend years explaining to their friends why they lost everything. They'll search for me in records, in rumors, but all they'll ever have is that photograph of me smiling, glass raised. A toast, not to the end of my life, but to the beginning of theirs without me.